I have a couple of practical issues to highlight. We have no fire drill planned tonight, so if there is a fire alarm, please make your way out of the building in a calm and orderly fashion as guided by staff. People with mobility issues should gather in the foyer on the left-hand side as you leave the chamber, near to the balustrade where assistance will be provided. Toilets are at the far end of the corridors, either side of the chamber, ladies to the left as you leave and gents to the right. May I ask that if you need to leave and return to the council chamber during the meeting, you ensure that the doors do not slam after you. I have received apologies for absence from Councillor Kane, Catt and Harper, Padder and Haynes. I won't go through the many events that I've been to during the time that I've been Lord Mayor so far, as I think we're going to have quite a lengthy meeting. I can't move on though without mentioning the Lord Mayor's procession. I'd like to thank all the many participants, officers, community groups, schools, food vendors, organisations who made it possible. It was a fantastic weekend. I'm sure everybody had lots of fun. We showcased the city, we had fine weather, and there was great music in Chapelfield Gardens. We're very fortunate in the city to have the Shrine of Julian, and before I proceed with the business, I'm going to read one of her well-known quotes. All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. Thank you. Now we'll move on to declarations of interest. Do any members have any declarations of interest to make on any item on the agenda? Councillor Worley.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I don't have a declaration. I'd just like to know if the monitoring officer has been made aware of any whipping arrangements for the meeting this evening.
No. We will now move on to public questions. We have received 2 public questions. The first question is from Mr. Cole Davis. Mr. Davis, would you please ask your question?
I would like to bring to the attention of the Council an apparently rather large financial discrepancy. According to email correspondence between myself and Norwich City Council, over £100,000 per year is spent on waste bins. A recent promotional magazine from the Council, however, refers to new homes built over the last few years, numbering only in thousands. Given that bins appear to cost somewhere between £40 and £70 per unit, with discounts for bulk purchases, there seems to be a huge difference between the money spent and the money required. While I understand that accounting categorisation may complicate matters, could I please ask for clarification on the discrepancy?
Councillor Hampton, will you please give your reply?
Thank you for your question. Our current budget for the maintenance and provision of new domestic wheelie bins for waste, recycling and garden waste services, along with food waste containers, is £32,000 per annum. The Council works closely with its waste management contractor, BIFA, to continually improve the processes to collect, refurbish and recycle damaged bins wherever possible to avoid the requirement to purchase new bins. Furthermore, when we do need to purchase new bins, we have been able to achieve a significantly discounted price through using BIFA's national purchasing power. Through measures such as this, we have been able to significantly reduce the amount the Council spends on new bins in recent years.
Mr. Davis, you're allowed 1 supplementary question of 1 minute. Do you have a supplementary question?
I would actually like to see some figures, if it's possible, for the Council to send them, because what I think the Council has suggested is merely that we've been as careful as possible. Given the discrepancy that I've seen, I'm not sure that that does actually answer my question. So the question would be, could you please send something in numbers and tell me the relevant channel by which I might find that out?
Councillor Hampton, will you please give your reply?
Of course, we can ask officers what figures are available and get that to you. But just to reiterate, the £32,000 for as stated in my response, isn't just for new homes, as your question seems to imply. That is including also replacing lost and damaged bins, and that includes the price of bin, admin costs, delivery costs. So I'm not sure there's as much of a discrepancy as is suggested here, but we can take this detail away and see what we can get back to.
If you don't mind my saying, I mean, I've actually heard things like £160,000 a year. That was the smallest number I could pick, but I won't carry on longer because I realise it's not being visible.
The second question is from Mr. Tristan Gordon. Mr. Gordon, would you please ask your question?
Hello. So I started off just wanting to compliment Norwich. I think it's a welcoming, beautiful city for everyone to live in. I think everyone would agree with that. Somewhere that we're all proud to call home. It's a thriving and growing city with constant pressure and demand on the housing.
I could help with actually switching it on, couldn't I? Okay, do you want me to start again?
Yes.
Go from the top. So I think this is something everyone will agree with, but Norwich is a welcoming, beautiful city that we're all proud to call home. It's a thriving, growing city with constant pressure and demand on the housing stock. Housing stock which, when built, contributes hundreds of thousands of pounds each year to the council in SIL payments. It allows first-time buyers to stay here and live here, and university students with their acquired knowledge to remain here. Natural England introduced nutrient neutrality in March 2022, stopping any new planning applications being granted for overnight accommodation, and to halt additional nutrients entering the rivers and the Norfolk Broads. Whether you wish to extend the bedroom, build new homes, or for homes those in need, all are on hold and required to demonstrate nutrient neutrality. And from what I understand, there's currently 70 new applications waiting, each of which would contribute to Norwich and employ local trades. Can I ask whether and when a nutrient neutrality offsetting scheme will be made available to locals to use?
Councillor Packer, will you please give your reply?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Gordon, for your question. Nutrient neutrality is one of the biggest challenges the development system in Norfolk has faced in years. It is vital that we work to improve the water quality in our rivers. We must also support the house building industry to deliver. In December 22, the City Council adopted its own mitigation scheme based around retrofitting of water efficiency measures in our housing stock. This work is ongoing and mitigation is being realised, with planning permissions being granted. A number of options for how any rising credits would be utilised were considered by Cabinet, and it was agreed that a criteria-based, policy-led approach would be used. Priority sites were identified at the time with a focus on delivery of affordable housing, wider generation benefits associated with the development of the site, and finally, ranked according to number of dwellings. Permissions for these sites are being granted and credits being drawn down. As a council, we are committed to supporting desperately needed housing to be built and want to see more applications being granted based upon meeting our responsibilities. As further mitigation is produced through the council scheme, we will consider which of the remaining sites held up by nutrient neutrality can be released further. The council's mitigation scheme won't address the entire housing need for Norwich though, and in recognition of this, we are also considering our position regarding the Norfolk-wide joint venture, Norfolk Environmental Credits. We are positively engaged with the joint venture and meet with them on a regular basis. We are also exploring other potential mitigation options with Natural England. In January 2024, the Norfolk authorities were awarded £9.6 million of government funding to kickstart nutrient mitigation schemes. The Nutrient Mitigation Fund was launched in May, and bids for funding have been submitted for many schemes across Norfolk. This money will help the authorities support those who can provide mitigation schemes to get them underway with capital funding and provide vital revenue funding to support feasibility work to understand the potential of other schemes. Joining the Norfolk-wide joint venture is being considered, and if it is felt it's the right fit, would be another option to enable planning permission to be granted for more schemes. I'm optimistic that the options being explored will help reduce the number of applications held back as a result of what we're required to do, and being new to this portfolio, I will be doing all I can to build upon the work carried out to date and enable the council to grant more planning permissions.
Mr. Gordon, you are allowed one supplementary question. Do you have a supplementary question?
I certainly did, but you covered most of it off. My question really, I was running through most of it and explaining how all the other councils have formed this joint venture, and it was only Norwich City Council who haven't. But I understand obviously with the retrofitting scheme. But I was wondering if you've got a rough timeline for when the council might be able to offer something to, whether it's individuals, local, smaller developers. And the reason I ask is generally I had a younger person who I employed, and because I didn't have the income coming in from projects that we developed or built out, I had to let them go.
Councillor Packer, would you please give your reply?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. In terms of a strict time deadline, I can't give that to you at the moment. But what I can do, if it would help, would be agree to meet with you outside of this meeting with officers. That would be useful and help to speak out a bit further. Thank you.
There are no petitions this evening. I will now move on to the minutes. I call upon Councillor Stannard to move the minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of March 2024 and the annual meeting held on the 21st of May 2024.
Formally moved, Lord Mayor.
I call upon Councillor Galvin to second the minutes. Seconded, Lord Mayor. Thank you. Are the minutes approved? I will now move on to questions to Cabinet members. There are 21 questions from members of the Council to Cabinet members, of which notice had been given in accordance with the provisions of Part 3 of the Constitution. A copy will be available on the Council's website. Members who have asked questions are permitted to put a supplementary question to the Cabinet member. Question 1, Councillor Driver, do you have a supplementary question?
No, Lord Mayor.
Question 2, Councillor Carrington, do you have a supplementary question?
No, thank you, Lord Mayor.
Councillor 3, question 3 rather. Councillor Huntley, do you have a supplementary question?
No supplementary.
Question 4, Councillor Mike Sands, do you have a supplementary question?
No supplementary, thank you, Lord Mayor.
Question 5, Councillor Maguire, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, Lord Mayor, I do. Addressed to Councillor Hampton with regard to this, would you like to acknowledge and thank the now former Councillor Martin Peake for raising this issue in the first place and helping you to implement such a successful initiative?
Yeah, thank you. I endorse exactly what you just said, so thank you very much to former Councillor Martin.
Question 6, Councillor Oliver, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, Lord Mayor, thank you. Yes, thank you for your response, Councillor Kendrick. You might notice I'm technologically challenged this evening, so I just had a quick look through the response. And yes, indeed, I'm aware that this issue will be coming to Cabinet tomorrow, and was pleased to see that. However, the question was submitted before the Cabinet papers were published, and it follows an inquiry that I made quite a few months ago via Silica, and I'm still yet to receive a response on that with regard to progress. There seems to be just a complete lack of response to questions, lack of information coming in my direction. I'm aware that some of the members of the Hub, I think they were talking about a scheme such as this from around 2020 is the first time I became aware of it. And obviously things have gathered momentum because there's organisations that needed a new home due to the uncertainty over Anglia Square premises. So could you assure me that in the future there will be a timely and useful response to councillor inquiries such as this? Thank you.
If I reply, officers have been working closely with Norwich Community Hub to develop the proposals for the potential use of Carroll House since the autumn. Initial discussions with Norwich Community Hub commenced in October 23. At that time, the initial target of April was informally discussed, but certainly never formalised. Norwich Community Hub provided with us their business plan in February of this year. As soon as it became apparent that there was a number of complex matters to work through in order for a decision to be made on the proposals, including amendments to their business plan. Given the level of subsidy involved, it is also necessary for any decision to be made by the Cabinet. There has been no real delay. On the contrary, officers have been working very hard to bring this initiative to this point. And with the local recent elections, tomorrow's meeting is the earliest possible Cabinet meeting at which such a decision could be taken. I hope you will join me in thanking the officers for their time. Subject to tomorrow's decision, it will then be necessary to complete the necessary legal work and for both Norwich Unity Hub and the Council to continue to work together to ensure that everything is in place to ensure the project is a success. The current timetable we have discussed with Norwich Unity Hub is aimed at early October. However, Norwich Unity Hub will keep its members updated on the progress. I hope that is my response.
Question 7, Councillor Smith, do you have a supplementary question?
May I raise a point of order?
What is the point of order?
Just that my question was only about the lack of information in response to my question about the progress of the scheme. It's no reflection on the people that have been working really hard to make this happen. It was just purely on the frustrating lack of update coming in my direction. Hence the question wasn't answered.
Councillor Kendrick, do you wish to respond?
Well, I would invite the Councillor to come along to tomorrow's Cabinet meeting where all the information will be laid out to the public. We have been entirely transparent, both to members of the public, to Norwich Unity Hub and to councillors. So we do come along to tomorrow's Cabinet meeting to read the papers and listen more.
We'll now move on to question 7. Councillor Smith, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, thank you, Lord Mayor. Can I ask Councillor Kidman, what is the City Council doing to lessen the impact of a large-scale event such as the Lord Mayor's celebration on the environment?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Generators, which affect air quality as well as increasing our carbon emissions, are no longer used in Chapel Hill Gardens. Collaborating with Norfolk and Norwich Festival, we installed mains power in Chapel Hill Gardens, and Norwich City Council takes its energy from a 100% renewable source, so we can be justly proud to say that our events in the park are powered this way. And as most visitors to the Lord Mayor's procession will know, we no longer use traditional floats, and I appreciate that people have fond memories of the floats, but floats are a long line of diesel-fueled trucks that not only have a significant detrimental impact on air quality, they increase our carbon footprint. The joyous carnival spirit that we enjoy today helps us to realise our ambition of being a net zero Norwich by 2045.
Question 8, Councillor Hockner, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Stellan, for your response to my original questions. I would like to know whether you support the view taken by the 400 people who have signed the petition presented to the March Council that arms investments should be screened out of our Treasury management and the Norfolk Pension Fund to the highest possible degree. And if so, will you commit to using your influence as leader of this council to have this issue put on the agenda of the Pensions Committee? And will you commit to updating myself and the petition organisers on any progress? Thank you.
Thank you for your supplementary question. Yes, I do agree with the 400 people, but I have to say the pension fund already has it on its agenda. It reviews it regularly, and I think it's made excellent progress. So I'm not quite sure what it is extra that you're asking me to do that isn't already happening.
Question 9, Councillor Price, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do, Lord Mayor, and congratulations on your appointment. Thank you for your answer, Councillor Hampton. You say in it that NCSL are working to identify different methods of removing the seabed from the highway and pavement, which is to be welcomed. However, it's quite clear to anyone walking around the city that the sweeping of the streets has simply not taken place. The city looks a mess. Will you please provide me the data sheets that details when the city's roads have been swept in the last year and evidence that this work has been checked by the council, please?
Councillor Hampton to reply.
Thank you for your question. I will talk to officers and get back to you with the information we have.
Question 10. Councillor Galvin, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you. I do. And thanks for the answer, and thanks for officers for taking action on this, which I'm really glad to have that progress with the residents. It's very frustrating for residents and an ongoing problem when council repairs are avoidably delayed like this. Can you provide me with information on how many repairs are avoidably delayed?
I don't have that information to hand. I'm happy to look into it. I suppose I'd also like to ask me to maybe clarify with you around exactly what you're asking for in terms of data. And I think one thing I'd like to add is we're keen to be sharing more information around housing performance. Actually, it shouldn't be that you're having to come to council and ask for more information. So obviously there's been the information we are now sharing like every other housing provider, but we're looking to take steps in the coming months to share more and more performance data around the area, because I think it's really important to have that transparency. So keen to take that up with you outside the meeting, Lucy, and agree with you, we always need to do better and we will do better.
Question 11. Councillor Haynes has sent apologies, so there will be no supplementary. Question 12. Councillor Francis, do you have a supplementary question? We'll move on to question 13. Councillor Champion, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Lord Mayor. There are millions of people across the country living with mould, and 1 in 5 people that are living with buildings afflicted by this in the east of England. I'm glad that addressing damp and mould in people's homes is an incredibly important issue, as you have said in your answer for the City Council. It is surprising that there is not already a record of compensation for poor repairs and conditions, and more pointedly, what is being done to address the significant issues of mould in the city so we don't need to address this through compensation?
Councillor Jones to reply.
Thank you for your supplementary. So to go back to the area of compensation, it's about not being able to separate that out from other money that's given, but we are, as I've said in my response, keen to separate that out and be able to give specific information relating to why that's being paid. And in terms of addressing damp and mould as and when it happens, that is an area that we've got a massive amount of development going on in terms of how we respond to that and always looking to improve that. It's an area of particular development, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with all councillors in coming months.
Question 14. Councillor Fox, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, I do. In January 2021, Councillor Stannard, you confirmed that the council did not support the Western Link Road at that time. Does your position remain the same? And can you confirm that you do not support the Western Link Road?
Yes.
Question 15. Councillor Calvert, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, Lord Mayor, thank you. This council seems very comfortable using taxpayer funds to pay an agency £850 a day to fill a vacancy for over a year, which we would normally pay a directly employed grade 10 officer a much more reasonable £190 a day. Can the public trust this Labour council with their hard-earned money?
I'm almost tempted to say yes. I must say the creative writing course must have gone well, because when you say that we are paying 4 times the going rate for interim staff, as the answer quite clearly states, that is not correct. And indeed, I spoke with the Director for Human Resources just yesterday. But we must accept, as we all know with the doctors' strike, that wages in the public sector have declined. But as I say, they're asking for 35%. Nurses have also seen a large fall in their living standards. But equally, that is the case for local government officers. They also have seen, over the last 14 years, a real terms decline in their living standards. And inevitably, it's leading some to increasingly move into the interim market, which has expanded. And it is now very difficult to find suitably qualified senior managers for some particular roles. And at the end of the day, we do need to fill those roles. We do so as inexpensively as possible, but realising that we do need the skills that are necessary to manage this authority.
Question 16, Councillor Worley. Do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do, Lord Mayor. Thank you very much, and thank you, Councillor Kendrick, for your answer both to my question and the previous question, which has demonstrated perfectly the need for us to be more creative in our thinking of how we recruit and retain staff at this council. It's clear that we need to do something new, we need to do something original, and that might not necessarily be to put wages up. So maybe we need to do something endorsed by Unison. And this seems like the perfect time for us to actually commit to a trial of a 4-day working week. The campaign is now about to run a webinar to go through the incredibly promising result from the trial in South Cambridgeshire District Council. And this is the kind of thing that I think if we truly are an exemplary employer, we need to be thinking of taking on board. So the question is now the time for us to commit to a 4-day working week trial, given the answer to your previous question? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that supplementary question. As you are aware, the former government's advice was very much opposed to the question of 4-day working week. Now that, as yet, has not changed. We'll see how that goes. But we must also remember that we are flexible as an authority in our employment. There are offers for part-time work such as that. We must remember that nearly the great majority of those residents in the city who are in paid employment work 5 days a week, and often those are in manual work. So yes, we will obviously look towards this, but we will have to take it on board the government's advice and strategy in regard to it.
Question 17, Councillor Young, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Jones, for your reply to my first question. We continually hear from various sectors, such as partner agencies, medical professionals and social workers, that they have issues with communication with the housing options team. So I would like to know how this will be addressed, and also will this be something you can follow up with me?
I'm happy to follow it up with you. I'd be interested to know the specific examples you're referring to. As someone who works in medical field, I do deal with counsel in my professional role as well. I think there are a number of challenges from both sides within different organisations that are working with both. In communication, it's not just us communicating, it's the other organisation as well. And I know working in the public sector, none of us are always perfect around that. So it's about how we all as professionals work best to support that individual, and that could be around how we say, for example, identify the relevant people who need to be involved in supporting someone. So I think there's a lot more communication from both sides with other organisations that we work with, and this is something we've got some work we're looking at the moment, developing, and really keen to have specific conversations with you if you've got some examples you'd like me to follow up. Thank you.
Question 18, as Councillor Catt has submitted apologies for absence, there is no supplementary question. Question 19, Councillor Osborne, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Councillor Jones, for response. It's good to know that the repair will be carried out. I know that residents weren't aware of that date. I neither was I as a ward councillor when I followed up on it. So I just want to check that there is a process for informing residents and councillors of dates for completion of repairs or communal repairs.
I think how we communicate directly with residents is something that is, I think, has room for improvement of how, and the formats we use for that. And I think it's something we can be looking at more creative ways of doing that. With reference to specific repair, you've mentioned, I've actually asked for that to be added to my casework tracker as well, so that I can make sure that is completed by deadline and update you. But I think we need to look at that more broadly. I think it's often people also are more patient when you're actually communicating clearly with them, they understand what's going on. So I think we need to think about different forms of communication, because actually not all of our residents maybe that written form of communication is always the best thing. We need to be thinking about how they access information. Is it that letters are appropriate? A lot of people are scared of opening letters. And I think we need to be conscious of that, and is how they can practically find that information as well. So I think it's a whole bigger conversation, and not one that I'm very interested in exploring.
Question 20, Councillor Bolton, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, Lord Mayor, thank you. And thank you for your response, Councillor Kendrick. And I appreciate the update that a note will be prepared, and it's a shame that committee is not meeting. The Council Development Working Group, intended to identify training and support to councillors, haven't met for many years. Considering the ever-increasing pressure on councils to deliver more with less, does the Cabinet member for an open and modern council think its members, both new and experienced, can be well equipped in such challenging times when their development has not been considered?
Well, I actually used to sit on that board, and I can assure you it has met in recent years. I'm always open to holding meetings of this particular board to discuss members' training, because I always value cooperation with colleagues from my own group, but also from other groups as well. And I would certainly hope that this group will meet in the foreseeable future.
Question 21, as Councillor Kane has submitted apologies for absence, there is no supplementary question. We will move on to the appointment of statutory officers. Before I ask Councillor Kendrick to move item 6, can I ask for those officers affected that they withdraw from the meeting during discussion of this item? I call upon Councillor Kendrick to move item 6. Councillor Kendrick, you have up to 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I must say that the mass exodus we had was not a result of the fact we have over a dozen statutory officers. Under the Local Government Act and Housing Act 1989, all councils must in place have 3 statutory officers who have each responsibility for elements of governance within the council. Those officers are the heads of the paid service, the Section 151 officer and the monitoring officer. This report deals with the appointment of 2 of those statutory roles, the Section 151 officer and the monitoring officer. I may first come to the Section 151 officer. This officer, known as the Chief Finance Officer, has responsibility for the proper administration of the Council's financial affairs. In Norwich Council, this statutory role is the responsibility of the Director of Finance. I propose that Alistair Rush is appointed as the Interim Director of Finance and Section 151 Officer as of the 17th of July 2024. Alistair is an experienced Finance Director and has held Deputy Section 151 roles in both county and unitary authorities. Alistair has been working with the Council as an Interim Deputy Section 151 Officer since November of last year. Working with Neville Merton, our current Interim Officer, who is the Section 151 Officer, overseeing the medium-term financial strategy, budget development and performance, and the production of the Statement of Accounts. Alistair holds the necessary qualifications to carry out this role as a fellow member of the Chartered Institute of Finance and Accountancy. And I also now come to thank Neville Merton for all the excellent work he has done in the role of a Section 151 Officer and Deputy Section 151 Officer. It's been a real pleasure for myself to work with Neville, who's always been very informative and acted in the best spirit of a local government in supporting business planning, He will continue with the Council to support business planning following the launch of our community-led plan. Now I shall come to the role of the officer monitoring officer. It is the role of the monitoring officer to report on matters that are likely to be illegal or amount to maladministration. They have responsibilities for matters related to the conduct of elected members and the operation of the Council's constitution. Following a rigorous national recruitment campaign, the appointments panel made up of myself, Councillor Stannard, Councillor Galvin, Councillor Lovell and Davies were delighted to be able to recommend the appointment of Jan Robinson to be the Council's monitoring officer. Jan has many years of experience working in corporate government roles, including previous experience as a monitoring officer. Subject to Council approval, Jan will commence her employment on the 30th of September of this year. For the period 3rd to 29th of September, I propose that the Council's Executive Director of Resources, Emily Yule, is appointed as the Interim Monitoring Officer. I'd ask the Council to approve the appointments of Alistair Rush as the Interim Director of Finance and Section 151 Officer, Janice Robinson as the Monitoring Officer, and Emily Yule as the Interim Monitoring Officer. Thank you very much.
I call upon Councillor Stannard to second the item. Councillor Stannard, you have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Formally second, reserve the right to speak.
I shall now invite group spokespersons to speak, should they so wish. Councillor Galvin, you have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. It speaks volumes about the state of local government finance that despite 2 sustained efforts at recruitment, appointing a Section 151 and Chief Finance Officer has proved to be not possible permanently at the moment. So therefore, members and officers have taken a really carefully considered decision to recommend that we keep this role fulfilled by very capable, as we've heard, Alistair Rush, who has until now been Deputy Interim. And I'd like also at this point to thank Neville Burton for his work to date. There is something of an irony in having to retain interim capacity in this finance position. As we all know, as interims are paid at higher rates than permanent staff. I've been asking Cabinet since last December for information on the pay structure for interim staff. I know that the senior leadership team of officers are tracking this area as an area of concern that needs addressing due to the large amount of temporary staff that have been employed over the last 2 years at all levels, including senior roles. So I'm asking the leader again why we don't have that transparent reporting of pay for interim staff, or at least an answer on when that's coming. In the meantime, I really hope that we increase, encourage and invest in our own internal talent in that area, and I think that is coming soon, and I really welcome that. This is a temporary measure on its way to something more sustainable, and we'll be watching to make sure that we do invest as a council in the necessary training and management to make sure this happens. Onto the role of monitoring officer, it's so critical to the council being able to deliver its governance effectively. We've had an interim again in this post, and I thank Samira Khan, who has taken on the role, and I'm very pleased to be able to support the appointment of an experienced and permanent monitoring officer, Janice Robinson. Looking forward very much to working with her on a range of projects to modernise and rejuvenate governance here, including a much refreshed and revitalised constitution to deliver a vastly enhanced level of democratic function. Thank you.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I would like to add my words to those that have already been said in support of Alistair Rush as our 151 officer. Having met with Alistair both at the Audit Committee and when he came and spoke to group leaders, I'm very confident this is a good appointment, and would also like to add my thanks to the significant work that Neville Merton has done. In many respects, Neville will be a hard act to follow in the role of Section 151 officer. I would also like to add my thanks to the panel of councillors that work on various appointments, and for those who've worked on appointing a new monitoring officer.
And again, I'd like to add my thanks to Samira for her work here in the time that she's been with us. Ably, I think, putting on the City Clerk's wig at various civic events. So thank you very much, and we'll fully support the report that's come today. Thank you.
Councillor Davis.
Yes, thank you. I don't think there's much more to say. Yes, these are essential appointments. We'll, of course, be supporting these recommendations. I did have the pleasure of sitting on the interview panel for two of these officers, Jan and Emily, and they are both excellent officers, and I really look forward to welcoming Jan to the council. Thank you.
Councillor Stannard, do you wish to speak?
No, thank you, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Kendrick, would you like to respond? If so, you have up to 3 minutes.
Yes, indeed, I would like to respond. I do take on board what Councillor Galvin has said about the need for interim officers and the costs involved in that. But this, of course, is a sector-wide problem with the whole of the local government sector. And it really does come back to what I said a little bit earlier on, is that we have seen a real cut in the living standards of senior local government officers in the same way that we have doctors and for nurses. I was only listening to Gus MacDonald, the former Cabinet Secretary, who was talking about the civil service and how, for example, procurement officers and senior contract enforcement officers are now basically leaving the service because they can get £70,000 in the civil service or £400,000 in the public sector. And that's obviously led to pretty disastrous public procurement projects such as the Ajax armoured personnel carrier. So we will have to, certainly in the short term, along with other councils, continue to access the interim supply market, regretful as that is.
We will now move to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Unanimous. Item 7. Item 7, appointments to other committees 2024 to 25. Council to note that under delegated authority, the monitoring officer has agreed the following appointments to other committees and working groups in line with the wishes of the political groups following the meeting of the annual council held on the 21st of May 2024. Item 8, appointments to outside bodies 2024 to 25. I call upon Councillor Stannard to move item 8.
Apologies, Lord Mayor. I understood this item had been withdrawn.
Item 9, motions. There are 5 motions listed on this evening's agenda, 4 of which were deferred from the meeting in March due to insufficient time.
Point of order, Lord Mayor. Sorry, is this withdrawn or not? You've moved the item. We've not had any confirmation of that. At what point is it withdrawn? How has it been withdrawn from the meeting? We've noticed that this is withdrawn. So if you could explain, please, how this is being withdrawn, which part of the Constitution is being used to withdraw it, please?
This doesn't need a vote. It can be withdrawn, and it's been withdrawn.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, point of order. You asked for an explanation as to the Constitution. Could you give one, please?
It's not a point of order.
We will take a 5-minute break. Under Rule 13, I am using my discretion as Chair to withdraw the item. We will move on to motions.
Sorry.
9. There are 5 motions listed on this evening's agenda, 4 of which we deferred from the meeting in March due to insufficient time. I have received confirmation from the movers and seconders that motion 9C, Democratic Models of Governance, has been deferred, and 9D, the future of Anglia Square, has been withdrawn. 9A, multi-faith working. I call upon Councillor Jones to move motion 9A. Councillor Jones, you have up to 10 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm pleased to bring this motion to Council tonight as it provides an opportunity for us to state our commitment to a tolerant and open society through practical steps as a council. Whilst the city has a significant population no faith at all, there is also a wide and diverse group of faith communities within our city, often unobserved by those around them. In the shadow of recent national political rhetoric that has bred fear and division that's beyond our control, how we engage with our citizens is crucial. But to begin with, we need to listen to those of faith, whose voices are often not given a wider platform. Norwich has been termed a city of strangers, was back in the Elizabethan times when Protestant refugees, persecuted for their faith, fled from the Netherlands to Norwich, becoming integral to the life of our city and its economy. For those of us who moved to Norwich, the number of churches is one of the most notable things. Whilst I'm not sure of the accuracy, I remember being told there was one for every Sunday of the year. And it's not a city without its religious controversy in the past, as the only city I believe to have been excommunicated by the Pope. But today the city's faith communities are far more diverse, and we need to be proactive in how we engage with them. I believe it's timely that we take these steps to engage. Having just come through a general election campaign that has seen the continued shift to the politics of hate and extremism into the mainstream political arena, with the potential to fuel the all too high levels of religiously motivated hate crime. We need to ensure our residents are heard. In the past, this city has strongly rejected the right and political extremism, the counter-protests to the BNP far outmatching them in number, but still they have returned in other forms. A far-right group had the audacity not long ago to take a picture on the steps of our City Hall. The fact they came on Saturday when the doors were shut may suggest they knew they weren't welcome here. This motion came about following discussions with our former sheriff, Marion. As we were organising for the display of the menorah on the balcony of City Hall, it was a privilege that the Jewish community of our city wanted to share this with us, but also how this was very much part of the stories of the city. It was a real pleasure to hear about how this had been brought in memory of a woman who had had a shop on St Giles who'd recently died, who was the last of her family here, and who had fled to Norfolk several generations ago, making Norwich their home. Another story of strangers who'd become integral to our city. But standing outside City Hall that evening, on the last night of Hanukkah, taught me more than I expected. I clearly had no idea what it could be like to be a member of a faith group in our city. I was standing with a mother and daughter enjoying the celebrations when someone took a photo. Their reaction stunned me. The anxiety of being photographed and identified there. No one should feel that in our city. So this motion is about what we can do, practically here in Norwich. At least these are some initial steps. As I mentioned earlier, I would say I believe that it's crucial that our faith groups are heard and really hearing their experiences, the challenge they face and sadly the fear they too often face. We need to build on the work of the Safer Norwich strategy and through the Safer Norwich partnership, and I believe we can support in ensuring that the concerns of faith groups are heard. They can inform the work on community safety we do, bringing a further dimension to it that we currently lack, with the ultimate aim to work to a point where no one should feel unsafe in our city due to their faith. There is no place for religious hate crime in our city, with the rise of both Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, alongside general hatred bred by the far right. As elected members, I am sure we can all condemn these, and all religious-based hate crime in the strongest terms, on the streets, in our communities, in institutions, or on social media in our city. But moving away from the negative, I hope that more groups will be open in sharing their religious celebrations and festivals with the wider city. And I hope that as a city council we can support in enabling this. Not only do these increase understanding, they support in building community cohesion. I hope that the lighting of menorah was only the first of a number of celebrations we'll have the opportunity to play a role in. Visibility to all those who live in the city can only build understanding and openness. And there is nothing more inclusive than sharing a festivity. We must recognise more than the traditional Christian festivals, in partnership with the diversity of faith groups. As city councillors, we are city councillors for all our city, for all religions and those of none. Ultimately, we have a responsibility to reject hate in all its forms, have a responsibility as a council to play our part in the community as community leaders. The doubling of hate crime over the last decade is a community safety issue we cannot ignore. So, Lord Mayor, I'd like to finish with the words of a woman who inspires me. That was Jo Cox MP, who said, "We have more in common than that which divides us." In that spirit of her wisdom, it's incumbent on us all to do what we can, where we are, to make this a practical reality for all our citizens. Together we can do this. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
I now call upon Councillor Kidman to second the motion. Councillor Kidman, you have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm happy to second this motion. I would like to read some words from one of our members of faith this evening. It's important for her voice to be heard in the chamber tonight. Being from a multi-faith household and learning about faith organisations across the city and beyond, including Sikh, Muslim, Hindu, Quaker and Catholicism, this motion resonates deeply with me. Growing up, the legacy of India and Pakistan partition and the role Britain played in that created divisions among Sikh, Hindu and Muslim faith groups in Southall, where I grew up. I've seen politicians such as George Galloway capitalise on creating divisions and stoking hatred in mainly South Asian communities. Worryingly though, my experiences in Waverley Valley recently were not too dissimilar, but this time at the hands of a party I expected better from. As elected representatives in Norwich, we are duty-bound to promote unity in our city, and that means working with faith groups without prejudice or motive. For example, having honest conversations to understand how we tackle issues of intolerance. Discussions on these issues are already taking place among Muslim and Catholic faiths, so we should work alongside these groups to do better for Norwich. There is a long way to go to fix the problems created over the last year or so, but we can now look forward. I feel this motion is timely and goes some way to restoring some unity in Norwich. Thank you.
I shall now invite group spokespersons to speak should they so wish. Councillor Champion.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And I applaud my colleagues across the chamber for bringing this motion to the table. It is, broadly speaking, a wonderful thing to see, and I support the spirit with which it's brought forward. I look forward to representatives of the city's different faiths being invited to work with the council. And the goals which have been set out in the motion are all admirable, if possibly lacking somewhat in detail, but I'm sure that will emerge following the meetings. I would just like to highlight that we do need to be careful when we're discussing faith. I just want to bring your attention back to the first communication that we had when we were told about the City of Tolerance and Diversity to mark a wide range of festivals. It was a press release on Norwich City Council, the 8th of December. The 8th of December was also a Buddhist holiday, and it was Bodhi Day, the day when Buddha was enlightened. 0.7% of Norwich's population identify as Buddhist. And yet in the communication put out by the council saying that it would mark a wide range of festivals, it doesn't mention the festival which fell on the day of the communication, nor does it reference Buddhism at all. And so I would implore and encourage the council to ensure that they walk carefully into this territory. It is a good thing what you are doing, and I support you and hope that colleagues around the room will support, and I'm sure that they do. But we need to tread carefully. I would also say that it is worth considering that arguably we need more atheists and humanists and their voices in interfaith events. I know, of course, atheism isn't a faith, but it's an philosophical outlook that doesn't just fit on a t-shirt so well. Interfaith movements actually share a common point of origin. They both started in part and as a reaction to religious extremism. Much like the atheist movement and the interfaith movement seeks to build interfaith group understanding, encourage critical thinking, and end religiously based sociological and political extremism. Interfaith work exists to bring diverse religious and non-religious people into common work to build relationships that might deconstruct the kind of us and them thinking that contributes towards the exclusivity religious hierarchy, and to place and challenge questions and to do so constructively. I would also, while we're on the matter, highlight that earlier this year Michael Gove shut down the Interfaith Network and the funding going to it. I'll be very curious to see what the Labour government, and would encourage members across the chamber to speak to their leader, to see what they're planning to do in this vacuum. It's all good and well having a local meeting, but when the main organisation that oversaw this work throughout the country has been closed down due to varying reasons, there is a gap there. In November, the Interfaith Week will be held. This year it's being hosted by the Faith and Belief Forum. They're non-funded, and they are trying to pull together and put together this week without any government support whatsoever. So I hope that Norwich will participate in the Interfaith Week. I hope that we will encourage all faiths, and not just those faiths which might spring to mind, that we are clear and diligent in our research and our communication and our outreach. And I would encourage our colleagues across the forum to speak to their leader, Keir Starmer, and ask him what he will do about this gap in policy. Thank you.
Councillor Ackroyd.
No, thank you, Lord Mayor. We did notify a different name to speak on this one, but it will be me. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Wright.
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. The motion is absolutely right when it says that there's no space for hate crime in our city, and we have a duty to speak positively as elected representatives, and I believe that's something that we are already all doing. It is, of course, the case that the recent election that we went through has heightened tensions in some communities. Whilst not directly related to Norwich, I can speak at first hand of a situation I'm aware of in Great Yarmouth, where the level of abuse that was directed to someone was absolutely outrageous. And I believe that there are certain entities within our political discourse who believe that it is acceptable to use that inappropriate language, but not in this chamber. I think actually in many respects the motion undersells some of the work we're already doing as a council. Councillor Jones, I think perhaps you're hiding your light under a bushel, because I would actually say that under Resolution 2 is to continue to work collaboratively, because I think we are already doing all of those things. I can speak at first hand from my role as Lord Mayor last year. Lord Mayor, Sheriff, Deputy Lord Mayor, we accepted every single multi-faith invite that we received, and they were many, and had it was a huge opportunity to learn about the way the different faiths interact with each other. You mentioned, Councillor Jones, Hanukkah. It was a privilege to be at that, and but at the same time, I think around about that time, the leader and I visited the mosque on Elsham Road to meet with them. So these things are already happening, and I think it is pressing on all of us to make sure that they happen more and better, but there is definitely a nucleus there already. And actually not just within the council. I was reflecting, and I had to check, but I was reflecting that when I was around about 10 years old, at that point we went to the St Peter's Methodist Church on Park Lane, and so this was 1985, and we did an away day to Luton, and that included going to a mosque. And for me as a 10-year-old, that was a very new thing, having grown up in Norwich. So, but our community here in Norwich has been doing that for a while, and we need to rekindle, if it's been lost, some of those things that are very, one of the, I think probably the core things of being from Norwich. We are these generally tolerant, accepting people. So thank you for my slight ramble there, but I'm absolutely pleased to support this motion.
Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I haven't got very much to add because so much has been said and so eloquently. I would just like to highlight that it was particularly heartening to hear women's voices being alluded to and reported on in the chamber, because I think as we do drill further into the detail and make stronger links with lots of different faith organisations, it's really important that we ensure we aren't replicating existing problematic power structures that we have in society as a whole. So yes, perhaps the quieter voices within our faith organisations, if we could make extra effort to communicate with them. Thank you.
Councillor Jones, would you like to respond? You have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'd just like to... Lord Mayor.
Yes. Are there any councillors that would like to respond? Councillor Fulton McAllister.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So thank you, Councillor Jones, for bringing this motion. I just wanted to seek some assurances around one of the points that Councillor Champion raised about the atheist and humanist communities being involved in that. I'm sure they will be, but especially from your nods now, so that's really helpful, thank you. I do have to say I'm a little perplexed by Councillor Champion's warnings, because although we do want to ensure that we cover every religion, I wouldn't want to put anybody off of trying to look at these types of motions, and it did seem like it was trying to put people off some level of inclusivity, and that seemed to strike the wrong tone, unfortunately.
Councillor Maguire.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And of course, around your neck, as you know, and as other former Lord Mayors know in this chamber, is a link that represents that openness that Norwich is a city of refuge, representing the canary and the silk traders coming over. You've got one of your links. It's a fantastic one. It's one that is worth pointing out. This morning, I had the great pleasure to meet with senior officers at UEA, including Pro-Vice Chancellors. And this brings this story today to talk about the work in developing the Centre for Jewish Studies. One of the great things that came out of this is some of the Jewish people at that meeting saying that because of the work that's been done, and I want to make mention of some of that, and partly culminating in the menorah, but not only that, is how safe they feel in Norwich. They did not feel safe when they first came, but they felt this change, and that Norwich is the city of refuge. And I think, at the end of the day, that's all we can do. We can't change the world. Norwich can only change Norwich, and I think we are doing that. Much of the work that led up to this meeting has had its origins in the civic work of the former Sheriff of Norwich, Marion Prinsley. And her name was mentioned often this morning, so I'm waiting until we decide how a statue might be erected to Marion. But both Marion and the now MP for Bury St Edmunds of Stonemark, Peter Prinsley, have worked very hard in the civic arena for much of this work. And the work, therefore, that led to one of those pinnacles with the Seven meal year before last, when an apology was made to Jewish people for Norwich's involvement, in particular in 3 episodes which were incredibly anti-Semitic. But we have learned. That work and the other work with other groups in the city has paved the way for this marvellous motion. But before I finish, I must also make mention of another Lord Mayor, David Fullman, who used to be an equalities officer, and he would always say, of all faiths and none. And I think, it is worth remembering. So, Lord Mayor, I think this is a wonderful motion, and I can't wait to vote for it for the work to start, or continue.
Are there any other councillors who wish to speak? Councillor Driver.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I wasn't able to speak. I think it's an excellent motion and a good time to bring it just after the general elections. And I'm also answering to this time what happened there recently with the left and the right actually getting together to get rid of the fascists who I believe were trying to get in France. But also in France, where I go there, there's a Saints' Day every single day of the year. And it's always celebrated. And I was going back to what Councillor Champion was saying about this is going on, that was going on the 7th of November, this is going on. I don't know what these going on. I think I'm a Christian, I'm not sure, I think I'm an atheist. But you always go back to God or something like this. But I know when Christmas Day is, I know when Easter is. I've got a rough idea where Hanukkah is, I've got a rough idea, but I got the dates. Now, if the council could do something, or the faith groups could do something with all their religious dates they'd like to celebrate, perhaps the rest of the public, like myself, could actually turn up to some of these and join in. When I was born there, I went to lots and lots of these different faiths all over the city with Peter and his wife as well, and Catholic cathedrals we go to. I've never been to as many churches in my life, but there's churches in Lakeland which is shut down years ago, who are now joined up with the Catholics and the Church of England to use the same church. Now that may be a way forward for religion as well. I mean, there's a lot of different faiths and everything like that. There's stuff to stop to say you can't use the same building. I mean, we use the same building here, there's different parties. Hopefully there'll only be one, but now we've got 4 here at the moment, but too bad. So we're really good at it. So I hope everyone support this, but if the council could, or a religious leader, we've got one in here in people in his point to do this, if they could do so, it would be great for someone like me.
Councillor Jones, would you like to respond? You have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you to many people for your comments. I suppose I just want to go back to the fact that, yes, we're talking about, and I mentioned there are many in the city with no religion, but I suppose I focus more around those faith groups because of the fear that far too many have to experience. And I think it was brought home to me that day, standing outside City Hall, because at that time, as a councillor, I was scared because of things I was experiencing. But for someone to tell me this was something they experienced day in, day out, I thought that shouldn't be in our city. That's not okay. So yes, this is about those of faith and those of no faith, but actually I don't think I could fully understand quite those experiences as someone who nominally raised C of E, I suppose, but actually probably doesn't identify as having a particular faith, that you are treated differently because of that faith identity and the challenges that come with that, that person shouldn't have to have in a city that I believe is tolerant as a city overall. And I'm very proud of a lot of the work we do. And I suppose, yes, there are more things we need to be raising, and if that was missed in an email, that's disappointing, but actually that's the point of this. We need to be asking faith groups. We can't assume we know. We actually needed to be talking to them. And that's the point of this, because actually it would be totally the wrong way around, us saying this is how we celebrate something, or this is what we should do. We need to be asking people who that is their faith, or this is something they experience. We can't be assuming that. So that's the really crucial thing for drawing representatives from those communities, and it could be in lots of different ways. One, I'm keen to have as a stakeholder panel, but looking at the other forms of engagement we do, because there can never be enough of that. But then linking that in to the work we do, say for Norwich, because actually it is about everyone in our city, regardless of whatever faith, feeling safe. That is crucial. But also having that opportunity to share. As we celebrate things like the Lord Mayor's procession, actually we celebrate Christmas, we celebrate so many things together. That bringing together for celebrate, that unity that comes with that, that's something that I think Norwich is really good at coming together for so many things. Lord Mayor's procession, pride, other things. Let's bring people together for more occasions, because that cohesion can only be a good thing. So thank you for those who've given words of support this evening, and I look forward to voting on this. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
We will now move to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried.
Point of order, Lord Mayor, if you will. Mayor?
Councillor Calvert. Councillor Calvert.
Thank you. We have just set an unprecedented, we have set a dangerous precedent in allowing the Lord Mayor to reorder the order of business to save the blushes of her leader, our non-political Lord Mayor. It's a dangerous precedent.
This isn't a point of order.
It allows her to move the order of business and any of her successors to move the order of business for political motivations. I wish them to
Councillor
consider
Calvert,
this.
we will move on to 9B Anglia Square. Councillor Stannard has amended his motion, which will form the substantive motion. The motion also has a change of seconder by Councillor Osborne. I call upon Councillor Stannard to move motion 9B. Councillor Stannard, you have up to 10 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Council Anglia Square is the most important development and regeneration site in the city centre. While it includes a lively but struggling shopping centre, which is much appreciated by the local community, most of the site has been gradually abandoned over the course of the past 30 years. This follows the failure of the most recent attempt to redevelop the site. There were many reasons why Western Homes ultimately withdrew from the project, not least of which was the complexity and cost of demolition and decontamination, which in the view of their bankers made it unviable. The problem was, and is, that one of the first things any developer must do is to start demolishing the existing buildings before a single brick is laid or a single home or shop is built. This means that there are considerable upfront costs, which adds to the borrowing costs and in turn makes economic viability and financial risk significant problems. So we are left today with a set of rundown buildings, which were built in the 1960s and which now sit destitute and empty. The huge former HMSO building, unoccupied for 30 years. The former NCP car park, which closed around 20 years ago, and the former Odeon cinema, which has lain empty for almost 10 years. The fear is that because the site is so complex and therefore expensive to develop, as I've outlined, the crumbling buildings could sit there for many more years to come. This would lead to further deterioration and no chance to improve one of the most deprived areas of our city, unless something very radical is done. Anglia Square sits in one of the most deprived areas of Norwich and represents many lost opportunities for that local community, as well as the wider city. These opportunities include much needed homes and jobs. As an indication of the size and significance of these opportunities, I would give, purely as an example, the 2,211 direct construction jobs, the 288 jobs in retail and commercial premises, the roughly 1,100 new homes, and the additional spending in the area of up to £36 million a year that were calculated to arise from the most recent failed scheme. These are huge lost opportunities and are why the redevelopment and regeneration of Anglia Square is the highest possible priority, not just for this administration, but, I believe, for the vast majority, if not all, of the councillors in this chamber. This is reflected in this joint motion from the Labour and Green groups on the council, which I'm very pleased to propose, and I'd like to thank Councillor Osborne for his constructive engagement and the effort he put in to make the motion a reality. As you all know, the owners of the site, Columbia Threadneedle, have decided to sell it, and that presents an opportunity for the council to address some of the problems that have dogged previous schemes. However, it also presents a threat to the future redevelopment of the whole site. That's because it's being marketed in 3 lots. One lot is the main site, and the other 2 lots are the satellite car parks. If these lots are sold to different buyers, then the possibility of a comprehensive redevelopment and regeneration of the whole site becomes unlikely. It is easy to envisage a scenario where the 2 car parks are sold and the main site, with all its complexities, is left unsold. The Council has been working with Place Partnerships UK to undertake a strategic review, and this has confirmed that challenges for financial viability have underpinned a long history of delivery failures. This in turn leads to concerns that Columbia Threadneedle might sell the site to a buyer which does not share the Council's vision for its regeneration. Indeed, it could be bought by a speculator who could hold it dormant for a period of time or could seek to break it up and sell off separate parcels. Finally, Place Partners have confirmed that in order to achieve comprehensive regeneration, there will need to be significant public sector support on a scale beyond the ability of the Council to deliver. Place Partners also have identified 3 options for the Council: do nothing, support Columbia Threadneedle to find a developer, and step in and acquire the site directly from them. Clearly, do nothing is not a viable option. The buildings are deteriorating and cannot be allowed to decay much further. The Council regards option 3 as the one most likely to achieve comprehensive regeneration. However, the Council will not be able to purchase the site without substantial financial support from central government for purchase and site clearance. I'm pleased to be able to report that constructive discussions are taking place between our offices and Homes England to secure such funding. Therefore, tomorrow's Cabinet meeting will receive a paper which proposes to delegate authority to officers to enter into discussions with Columbia Threadneedle with a view to expressing an interest for the potential acquisition of the site, subject to due diligence and business case approval. This is not, I would stress, a decision to purchase the site, but to obtain the authority to express an interest. It's also important to note that the due diligence process will take several months to complete. We need to obtain legal advice and planning advice, surveys, market intelligence, and explore potential development partners. This is absolutely essential because of the potential risks to the Council, which we need to understand fully and mitigate. It also will take a little time to get sign-off of any financial support from Homes England. We therefore need to persuade Columbia Threadneedle to wait for us and not to sell the site off in parcels. It's surely in their interest to sell to a buyer who can take the whole site off their hands in one go. Part of the purpose of this joint motion, therefore, is to demonstrate that councillors are united in this aim and that there is no hesitation about it at a political level. It also supports the work we're doing with Homes England and our request to Columbia Threadneedle to pause the sale of the site to give us time to complete our processes. It sets out some principles going forward around stakeholder engagement, tenure, target levels of affordable and social housing, phasing, space for businesses, links with adjoining areas, climate resilience and heritage. Finally, in the event that the current sale of the site does not result in comprehensive redevelopment, it asks Cabinet to consider compulsory purchase. Council, I can only repeat that Anglia Square is the most important regeneration and development site in the city centre, and the Council is absolutely committed to overcoming its many challenges and seeing it redeveloped and regenerated for the whole community. This motion, if passed, and I hope it is, will demonstrate that this vision is shared widely. I will be able to report this to Cabinet tomorrow night when I present the Cabinet report, and that will send a strong message to Columbia Threadneedle about the Council's intentions. I commend this motion to you.
I call upon Councillor Osborne to second the motion. Councillor Osborne, you have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Stollard for working together so comprehensively on this. As a Mancroft ward councillor, I represent the people in that area of high deprivation that Councillor Stollard referred to. They care about the area, they value the shops that are there, the businesses, the artists, the community spaces. But then also, many people do want to see the site be developed and know that there needs to be a future for Anglia Square. And I'm sure that everyone in this room wants the best for that area. And I'm very hopeful that this motion provides a positive way forward that will serve the interests of the local community as well as of the wider city. I think it's fair to say that there have been disagreements in the past about the future of Anglia Square, there's no denying that. But the fact that we were able to work together and amend an initial form of words that I put together shows that there is a future for cross-party working and sets the tone for that. It's fairly apparent from what I've said so far that I think that the future of Anglia Square has to respect and support the community that lives around it. That means that ensuring that there is at least 33% affordable housing, which is a policy that the council has adopted, and in particular social housing. So we can't ignore the housing crisis that's so badly hurting people in our city, and we can't solve that housing crisis unless we create more social housing. That has to be a priority. The future of Anglia Square also has to include space for businesses. The people, when I speak to people in the area, that is the thing that comes up most often, is the fact that they value the businesses, and it's been heartbreaking to see the shops that are closed because of the uncertainty in the recent months and to be honest, years. So creating certainty and good communication with those businesses is absolutely key. And all of those things, to achieve all of those things, we have to be working with residents groups, with the many organisations, the medical centres, the business groups, the youth provision that has an interest in the area and has a stake in the redevelopment of Anglia Square. And those groups should be the drivers of this site as well as the council working alongside them. So instead of being in hock to private developers of the site or private owners, I hope that this motion and work together that we can do will break the decades-long development limbo that Anglia Square has been stuck in. And purchasing the site would be a huge step forward for getting affordable housing for the North City Centre. It would mean that businesses can be sure of their future, and it would mean that we can work collaboratively to put the needs of the local community and our city first and foremost in the development of Anglia Square. So I look forward to working across all councillors to achieve that.
I invite group spokespersons to speak should they so wish. Councillor Lubbock, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Well, what a lot has changed since we first received 2 motions on Anglia Square for the council meeting on the 12th of March. Most notably, a new Labour government has been elected, and already I hear talk of demonstrating a more kind way to do politics. The site in question, Anglia Square, has been put up for sale with an 8.5 million price tag. And instead of 2 motions, we now have 1, Anglia Square, a way forward, which is in itself, I feel, a consensus from the Labour and Green parties to not go over the failures of the previous scheme and place blame, but to come together with 1 motion, concentrating on a positive way forward and being willing to share the responsibility of going forward together as 1 council. I hope I'm not wrong in this assumption. If not, then I would like to add the support of the Liberal Democrats to the consensus of coming together, united to secure a future for Anglia Square. We support an application to Homes England for support to work with the City Council on acquisition and development of Anglia Square. In particular, the necessity of government to fully fund the purchase to facilitate it, to do so in the light of the strategic importance of Anglia Square and its viability challenges. A new Labour government, hopefully keen to kickstart the growth in the Norwich economy and hopefully keen to empower local democracy rather than calling in decisions as the previous government did, wanting to disrupt local democracy. We support working to identify potential developers or partners to produce a viable scheme. Viability is at the heart of any decision on this site, with further challenges presenting themselves, such as the recent changes in legislation from the Building Safety Act and, of course, increased development costs. We support that a full business case for acquisition and development of the site be prepared and adequately financed as set out in tomorrow's Cabinet papers. We support the establishment of a cross-party working group to be informed and engaged in proposals, including stakeholder engagement. We note the risk management report in the Cabinet papers for tomorrow, which clearly outlines the many risks involved with this Council's strategy. But there are also risks of doing nothing and leaving the site on the open market for developers, some of who will see the division of the site into 3 pieces of land as opportunity to return profit from their short-term investments in the shape of car parks. We are therefore committed to the way forward. The Liberal Democrats support the motion and the consensus of working together with the same aim of doing all possible to find a sustainable future for Anglia Square. Thank you.
Councillor Davies, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The Independent Group also support this motion, and it's really good to see a genuine cross-party consensus on this. I think we all want to see this work, we want to see this become a success. I would also like, if it's possible, when we form the working group, the cross-party working group, to perhaps look at the option of a cooperative housing model, so that the homes built by the council are not subject to right to buy, so they are kept in stock for the people in the area. I don't know if it's something we can explore, but I know other councils have certainly set up vehicles to facilitate that. 5A says seeks to achieve 33% affordable or social housing. I would like that to be guaranteed. If this is a council-owned site, I think we should be seeking at least 33%, rather than seeking to achieve 33%. But that's, you know, something that will come out in the valuation and viability report, no doubt. The last viability reports were wildly conflicting. So the benchmark land value calculated was anything between 11.6 and 14.8 million. So I think when we do have the working group, we need to be very careful about the viability reports and how that feeds into the models going forward for social housing. I'd also like to see no single aspect housing on the site, as I think that was, I don't think that's, you know, very nice for people to live in, and ideally blind tenure across the site. But I think this is a really, really positive motion, and we're really pleased to support it. So thank you, Mike and Jamie, for bringing it.
Are there any other councillors who wish to speak? Councillor Sanders.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I've been on every planning application that's come forward about Anglia Square since Western Homes and Threadneedle first sort of made their way up the M11. Sorry. One thing that's been consistent in all the iterations that have come in the past is it's treated Anglia Square as one city block. I think one of the important things of this motion is, again, we want to treat this as one unified block. And I think it's important that whatever we do, we try to maintain this whole aspect of Anglia Square and avoid the situation of it being split up and parcelled out to various developers who will not have the same vision, the same unified vision that City Council has for this part of the city. And I think everyone will agree that one thing that's been made clear in the past is that Anglia Square is the northern gateway to the city, and it's important that we maintain that and and I look forward to the aims of this motion being achieved and Norwich City Council taking this forward. Thank you.
Councillor Worley.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just want to say off the bat that I fully support this motion and also the notion that this is one of, if not the biggest opportunity for redevelopment in our city. And I'm hugely proud of this glowing example of cross-party work here in the Chamber, where we've worked together collaboratively for a shared and common goal, and I think we need to see a lot more of that. I'm really pleased to hear assurances from Councillor Stannard that the due diligence process will be carried out. From personal experience of working and being involved with other councils, I have seen this go wrong, and I think it's really, really important to make sure that we have a proper exit strategy and are able to demonstrate an ability to recoup every penny of public money that we spend on this. I've seen this in the sale of South Norfolk House and Thorpe Lodge, which I think was a vanity project for their leadership. I've seen arguably the purchase of Carrow House, and we had a lucky way out there with the Unity Hub, otherwise that's a large sum of money that we were going to have to be spending each year until the Norwich East development was to kick off. And I think whilst I am so supportive of this motion, and I appreciate we have to do this, we just have to make sure that T's are crossed and I's are dotted to make sure that we can recoup every penny of our resident money that we spend on this project. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Councillor Price.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll be brief. Meeting residents of Norwich North during the election period, this issue of Anglia Square came up time and time again, and the people really want to see the site developed, and all across the city we see that. And I've been through a personal experience of going into private letting again for the first time in sort of 15 years here in Norwich, and I can tell you it's horrific. The prices are horrific. The demand far outstrips the ability to supply, and it's actually really demoralising. And so the one thing that Norwich needs is more housing, most desperately. So I'm really pleased we've got this motion, and I think that we have a great vehicle in our wholly owned company, which is now grown, matured, improved, and regulated by ourselves much better than its first incarnation. We're dipping our toe into brownfield now, and I hope that the confidence that we can get from the Anglia Square project ahead of us will help us support the residents of Thorpe Hamlet and the wider area of the city where we want more housing, and we can start to look at our old car park on Mountergate, and we can look at the stored St Anne's site on King Street, which has been left undeveloped for a number of years. And hopefully that will give us the confidence to keep pushing forward on the Norwich East development side. There are a number of brownfield sites across the city that need developing desperately, and I hope this new renewed vigour for Anglia Square will help us get much needed housing, family housing, social housing, affordable housing in the city centre as quickly as possible, because people are absolutely desperate for it, and it's killing their finances to throwing away money on extortionate rents. Thank you.
Councillor Stannard, would you like to respond? You have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm aware of the time and there's another motion to come, so I'll keep this brief. I'd like to thank everybody in the Chamber for their support for this motion. I think if we're going to be successful in moving Anglia Square forward, the best vehicle for that is unanimity in this Chamber, is that we do it together. And I think hopefully we're going to see that in a moment. In terms of brownfield sites, there are loads in the city. There are, which are stalled following the 2008 crash. Thankfully, and you would expect me to say this, but it's true, we now have a Labour government which is committed to investing in infrastructure and house building, particularly in urban areas, and is committed to bringing forward stalled brownfield sites and as I understand it, it's going to create an infrastructure fund to do just that. So I think we have that on our side, and the Labour Council, working with the Labour government, hopefully can achieve great things. So we have a Labour government, coming back to what you were saying, Councillor Price, committed to building thousands and thousands and thousands of homes. That's what we need, and it's about time. So thank you for all your support. I won't keep you any longer. I just sense we're all going to vote for this, so let's go ahead and do it.
We will now move to the vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous and carried. 9C, democratic models of governance. I have received confirmation from the mover and seconder that this motion has been deferred. And 9D, the future of Anglia Square, I've had confirmation from the mover and seconder that this motion has been withdrawn. As we are now approaching the 2-hour mark, can I ask if the remaining item, which is 9E, can be taken as unopposed business? If not, we should take a break of 10 minutes.
Lord Mayor, sorry, we have confirmation. We've got 10 minutes left of the meeting. So we...
Yeah, I have to ask before the 2 hours is up.
Yeah.
Yes, so we'll take a vote on that. Does everyone agree that it's unopposed?
Oh, I'm not unopposed.
Lord Mayor, I'm not going to say point of order, but I am going to say, look, we could take it and just not have a 10-minute break. Let's just do it.
Okay. So 9E, protect workers' rights. I call upon Councillor Hopner to move motion 9D. Councillor Hopner, you have up to 10 minutes.
Thank you very much. I won't use all the 10 minutes. I just want to say thank you to everybody in the chamber for restraining themselves from being chatty tonight so that we actually get through all of our business and part of from the one that we have removed. Thank you for the opportunity to present this motion entitled Protect Workers' Rights, Refuse to Operate Minimum Service Levels and Work Practices. The right to strike is a fundamental freedom protected by international law. It is vital for the balance of power in the workplace. It is essential for keeping working conditions from worsening. It is indispensable for ensuring that pay inequalities don't grow even further. The Conservative government, I believe we are all relieved to finally take the back of, has been chipping away at this fundamental freedom. The Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act 2022 has imposed drastic restrictions on the right to peacefully assemble and make noise, including on a picket line. The Strikes Minimum Service Levels Act 2023 has even more drastically eroded the right to strike. Under this legislation, employees in certain key sectors can be required to work, even if they have democratically voted to strike. And if they refuse to work after having been required to work, they can then lawfully be sacked. If this legislation stays in place, for workers in relevant sectors, the right to strike really effectively has been reduced to the right to hope for employer permission to strike. Amnesty International says that the Strikes Act gives ministers sweeping powers to impose minimum service levels after whatever consultations they see fit, thereby ignoring key safeguards that protect workers' rights under international law. The Trades Union Congress has called the Act malicious, unnecessary and unworkable. The new Labour government has pledged to repeal the Strikes Minimum Service Levels Act within its first 100 days in office, and I hope it will also reconsider the appalling PCST Act to fully reinstate the right to strike and join a however noisy picket line. While we are waiting for the new government to make good on its promises and repeal this awful legislation, the motion before us reaffirms that this Council is fully committed to the right of its workers to strike without having to fear unfair draconian consequences. Therefore, the motion asks the Chief Executive of the Council to agree to exercise its discretion to not issue work notices. It asks the leader of the Council to encourage County Council to do the same, and it emphasises how important it is to work constructively with our trade union colleagues to maintain harmonious industrial relations. Colleagues at the Norwich and District Trades Union Council and at Unison have been central to raising the alarm about this draconian piece of legislation that is the Strikes Act. And I'm grateful to them for raising this issue with us too and for suggesting and inputting into the motion before us. I would like to conclude by saying how pleased I am that Councillor Donald swiftly accepted to second this motion. And this gives me some hope that good faith cross-party collaboration on important issues is possible in this chamber, and I hope we'll see more of it. Thank you.
I call upon Councillor Stannard to second the motion. Councillor Stannard, you have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Under the Tories, working people suffered more than a decade of falling and flatlining pay, while prices in the shops and bills have soared and the use of food banks is continuing to increase. Apart from the wealthy grandees of the Tory party, everyone's feeling the pressure of the cost of living crisis. The Tories have broken Britain and we're paying the price. In addition, public services are on their knees. The Tories don't care a jot about working people or workers' rights. They don't respect working people or their rights at work. Quite the reverse. They exist to represent the interests of business owners and have always regarded trade unions and workers' rights as an impediment to profit. They've always opposed progressive legislation to improve workers' pay and conditions and protect the legal rights of the unions. Labour is the political arm of the trade union movement. Working together for a century, we've ensured progressive improvements in workers' pay, condition, rights and protections. The Tories have always opposed us. The last Labour government lifted the basic minimum rights in the workplace by introducing the national minimum wage, the 48-hour working week, 28 days paid holiday, parental leave, and greater protection from unfair dismissal. The Tories opposed every single one of them, and they've always actively legislated to restrict and attack the rights and freedoms of both working people and the unions. I was going to talk a little bit about what the Strikes Minimum Service Levels Act says, but I think that's already been done more than adequately by my colleague on the other side of the chamber. But what I will do is, again, repeat that Keir Starmer has pledged to repeal this legislation, and I think we can all say aye to that. But while we welcome that much-needed pledge, we need to go further, and we will. Labour's New Deal for working people will further transform the landscape for working people by introducing new rights, better conditions and better pay. Keir Starmer, as has been said, has promised that the Labour government will write the New Deal commitments into law within 100 days of taking office. And what are we talking about? Well, first of all, making work pay, raising the minimum wage so it's a genuine living wage you can actually live on, strengthening sick pay and making it available for everyone, more say at work so unions can raise pay and improve conditions. And then security at work, crack down on bad employers with tough enforcement of rights at work, ban 0 hours contracts and fire and rehire, full employment rights from day one for all workers, including sick pay, parental leave and protection from unfair dismissal. And then finally, work-life balance, flexible working and family-friendly hours as a right from day one at work, a contract that reflects the number of hours you regularly work with compensation for cancelled shifts, and a right to switch off outside working hours so work stays at work. Council, this is what you get when you have a Labour government, and I know we're all very pleased about that at the moment, in contrast with what went before. Because it's what we do, it's what we exist to do, because we're the party of the unions and of working people, whereas the Tories are the party of privilege, exploitation and inequality. I'm proud that we now have a Labour government which is committed to repealing anti-union legislation and working to make further fundamental and significant improvements for working people, which will have a real positive impact on their lives. I commend this motion to you.
now invite group spokespersons to speak. Councillor Ackroyd, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll try and be really brief because we've already heard two speakers who are probably much better suited or know more than I do about it. But the Controversial Strikes Act was passed by the Tory government after they rejected extensive amendments proposed by the House of Lords, which addressed, amongst other things, concerns about the right to strike and how it would be protected. How did the government intend to ensure that these minimum service levels are fair and balanced and do not affect that right to strike? We know this is just the latest in a long line of legislation brought in by the Conservatives. Starting with Thatcher, the aim has been to weaken unions and deter people from joining, meaning that companies can force down wages, leaving lower wage earners poorer and at the mercy of unscrupulous employers. The result is zero hours contracts, poverty wages, and some people here in Norwich, I'm really shocked to learn, working with no contract at all, and I'm talking some professional people. This new Act grants ministers and employers unprecedented powers to restrict industrial action. It promises mandatory minimum levels to replace existing voluntary arrangements. The minimum service levels that it set out are very often not met and do not apply in normal working times. The bill has the power to ramp up rhetoric whilst offering no insight towards a solution that the public need. The reason that we've been in crisis is that the previous government failed the workers in the public sector, and it's nothing to do with trade unionism. It is so important that we do all we can to improve workers' rights, to make workplaces safer, more inclusive, work more enjoyable and fairly rewarded. Unions have a huge role to play in that. The protection of trade union and employment rights, including the right to strike, has never been more important, and I'm glad that we are about to see the repeal of this, what is, horrendous act. As we all know, trade unions do far more than just send people onto picket lines, and they provide legal advice to members, support in disciplinary proceedings. I could go on. For all those reasons, I was a member of the NUT, never thankfully needing individual help, but certainly having worked with colleagues who did. Striking in the past is what led to us gaining so many of the rights we take for granted now. To take away the right to object to what people believe is an unfair practice, or to ask for better pay, is a contravention of rights that people have fought long and hard for in this country. We fully support this motion. Thank you.
We're at the 9:30 mark, but as we're nearly at the end, we will proceed, and I invite Councillor Oliver. Councillor Oliver, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just to confirm that the independent group is supporting the motion.
Thank you. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak?
Would the Lord Mayor be willing to look left from time to time?
Always.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I suppose I'd just like to briefly reflect on the fact that I'm so pleased that this will be repealed, because it really showed me how out of touch the legislation was, standing on a picket line as a nurse. And that wasn't a decision I took lightly by any stretch of the imagination. Joining a picket line is not something we wanted to do, it was something we were forced to do because we weren't being listened to. And it wasn't just, yes, we strike over pay, but it was about more than that. It was about patient care, it was about safety. There was so much more to that. But I was really taken by the public support we had, by particularly the white vans that went by tooting their horns, the Amazon delivery guy, who was already himself on pretty low pay, but dropped us off some Greggs. You know, these were, people understood why we were pushed to that point. But I suppose, yes, we have, the legislation will be hopefully repealed, that would be amazing. But I think strong unions are still crucial, and that responsibility is not with the union, it's with us as union members, because the union is only as strong as its membership. And actually, by having those strong unions, we can negotiate earlier, we can raise things earlier, and we don't need to then hopefully get to a position where we have to strike. So, having worked both in healthcare and in the NHS, where we have recognition, and in the private sector, where it was horrendous, we had no union recognition agreement and no protection, and our sick pay wasn't guaranteed. It was scary. Having that safety net, essentially, which a union gives us, is amazing, but we have to proactively be part of that, and that is crucial, and play our role as an individual union member. Thank you.
Councillor Fulton McAllister.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It should go without saying, as a full-time trade union official, this motion does have my full support, but I would like to highlight that the motion does not comment upon our role with our arm's length companies or with our joint partnerships. And I would hope that if there was any action there, we all in this chamber would agree that we would expect the same application as we would to our council employees. It's a matter of principle. It's something which I'm confident the Labour government will repeal, but obviously things take parliamentary time. And for that reason, I'd like this to be specifically minuted within the minutes rather than debate ensued, to give a clear steer to Cabinet members and our Chief Executive about the application with our wider influence that we have as a council.
Councillor Carrington. Thank you, Lord. Since 1980, the list of statutory obligations on unions has grown exponentially, and successive governments have played tug-of-war with the rights of trade unions. The Strikes Minimum Services Level Act is a particularly onerous piece of legislation. Public sector workers put their lives on the line during the pandemic to save those of others and keep the country running. At the time, some were clapped for their service. Now, just a few years later, many have been handed nothing but a kick in the teeth. Lord Mayor, the mitigation and repealing of this act are causes close to my heart. As a trade union rep, I've stood with workers on the picket line as previous Tory governments have cut public services to the bone and attacked workers' terms and conditions. And in my day job as a social worker, I've had the privilege to work on the front line alongside all of these workers and have witnessed their incredible and unwavering dedication to duty despite such inimical treatment. Unions have pointed out that employers have stated that these extra powers were just not needed and were not wanted. Historically, for example, some sectors have used voluntary local agreements to ensure that emergency services were able to run on strike days. We all know how hard those in public services work, but when it comes down to it, whose expertise would you trust more to make decisions on safety? Those who may never have done the job, or those who are actually doing the job? Thank you, Lord Mayor. Councillor Talbot.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think we can agree in this chamber that we all look left and that we appreciate that. I'm glad that we have agreement across the chamber that this is an important issue and one that we all agree on. For my sins, I was once too a trade union workplace rep. I should note that there is only one member of this chamber who is in a position to influence national legislation, the Honourable Member for Lowestoft. I note that they have... Oh, you're right. Mr. Edmonds, my apologies. But I noticed that he has slipped out of the chamber before the vote. It does concern me that he may be saving his blushes.
Lord Mayor, I'd like to make a personal statement on behalf of Councillor Brisbane. He had to get the train back to London. It's as simple as that.
Otherwise, he can't vote on the King's speech tomorrow, which influences.
My suspicions remain, and I end my point. Thank you.
Norwich would be chaos.
Councillor Calvert, I can assure you, during this meeting, I have looked left, right and centre. Councillor Price.
Forgive me, Lord Mayor, it was a joke purely upon the joke of my colleague.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and may I just reiterate that you're doing a sterling effort and welcome into the role. I'll be fairly brief on this. It's been a long night. You know, my family has a tradition of being involved in public services, working for the post office, working for the buses, and being part of the unions. And then what that did was give them a lot of security and strength in numbers. It's fundamental to the working person's life. It gives us strength. But what I would add to that is that it is not the exclusive fiefdom of the Labour Party. Okay, the unions belong to everyone, and it does kind of grind my gears when I hear Labour slapping themselves on the chest. The unions belong to the people, okay, not to the party. And the reality is, I won't be as eloquent as my colleague on the other side of the chamber was, but we have let down our workers here in recent times, and that's a Labour administration, okay? So let's see the repeal of this, let's support workers' rights, let's see if Keir Starmer is actually looking left. We'll see soon enough. But at the end of the day, we need to get our own house in order as well, and look after and support our own workers. So let's not be jumping from the ceiling and claiming that one party is for the unions. Thank you.
Councillor Driver.
Yeah, thank you. I believe that one party for the unions. I think anyone could be in the union should be if they can do it. But I also really support this motion as the time we should bring it in. It's great that Keir Starmer says each one do this 100 days, I hope do. But for someone who worked during the winter of discontent and brought all the Norwich hospital staff out onto the streets when we had the health minister as one of our MPs in Norwich, let's not be too worried about this Labour government and just hope they will carry on for the next 5 years and get another 5 years after that and work for the workers and work for the trade unions. We see there's one or two bits of the trade union bits that working at the moment. These need to be ironed out and done. So let's not put all our great hopes into this Labour government to do everything in the first 5 years. Of the economy, we just going to say, oh, Norwich need £3 or £4 million and giving that tomorrow. They ain't got £4 million. So we've got to be a bit careful. And I was a union official, I was in charge of Newby in those days, in charge, and we were glad to come out against the Labour government. It's a great shame that took 14 years and back to out. So be careful what you hope for.
Councillor Hockner, would you like to respond? If so, you have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for your comment, and I'd particularly like to thank Councillor Buttermaker for his really well made point about the wholly owned companies, and I hope it has been heard by the Cabinet and the Chief Exec. Thanks everybody for the collective spirit. Nice to see that for a change, and hopefully more of that next time. Thank you.
We will now move to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried. That concludes this evening's meeting. Thank you all for your attendance this evening. I hope you have a safe journey home. Peace be with you.